Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Lizzie and I live in a small town in Vermont with my husband and my 3 kids. I have a large size garden and lots of perennial flowers, and I have chickens, and I really enjoy the gardening, homesteading lifestyle that we have. So today I'm going to talk about my plans for my garden this year. I finally got them down on paper, always put them down on paper. They've been in my head for a long time, but I noticed that as I was actually doing math, that I had to flip a few things around and work through a few things to make it really usable space and put everything that I want into the garden this year. I am trying to avoid making the garden bigger. I probably will again at some point, but I have a greenhouse that's going to have garden beds in it that I'm going to utilize this year. I also have some raised beds that my husband built me last year that I used for the first time. So I want to really be able to use the space that I have well, and then I'll move on to something different if I need to. But I want to see how much I can really get in here and have it grow well this year. So come take a look with me at my garden plan for this year. So this is an overview of my entire gardening space. I don't have anything that's hidden right here underneath my camera leg, just to let you know. So you are able to see everything very clearly from where you are. So I look at this in a couple of different ways. So let me show you around. First, this is my large size garden. And so this is 42 feet this way, and it is about 46 feet this way. And the way that I really do this garden, especially this year, I think of it as separate gardens. Down here is supposed to be all vegetables. I had a little bit of flowers that ended up sneaking in, but that's okay. It's mostly all vegetables. Then up here is all cut flowers. Over here is the corn patch, which my husband's in charge of that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 raised beds that are over here. And then each of these right here are going to be arches that we are using cattle panel for and be putting in this year. So I have lots of things that are going to grow up on that. And then this up here is my greenhouse with my greenhouse beds in there. This is not actually where my greenhouse is. It's way over this way behind my house. But just so that I can have everything in the same place and know where I'm placing everything, this is a replica of my greenhouse right here in the space that I have. Laid this out very carefully. I have been able to take out some things in the field because there are extra things that are going up in here. So I have a little bit of more room in my field this year, vegetable wise, because there's things that are going on up here. And also because I have these arches as well. Some of these things that will climb up, specifically like the cucumbers and the sweet peas, I would actually make room for in this garden. Now I don't even need to worry about that anymore. It's all just going to be over here. So I have a lot of space that I've freed up. Now I can really get down to the things that I want to do in here that make the most sense for me. Also, another thing I've done specifically this year for the vegetable wise is that I have really pared down the things that we use instead of just planting things to plant them. I think it's a conundrum that gardeners can get into, that this certain thing looks so pretty, or this thing is so useful, or you want to try something different. And I'm all for trying things different, but I've gotten to a point where I know what we use and what we don't use. And so the vegetable garden especially is like no funny business. This is what I'm going to freeze. This is what I'm going to use the most of. This is what I need to have a lot of. And that's it. I'm not going to have anything else. For example, this year I'm not doing any broccoli or any cauliflower. We just don't use it. We don't eat very much of it, but even on top of that, the space that the broccoli takes up, I can just purchase some frozen broccoli from the grocery store instead, and it's a lot cheaper and a lot easier than taking up all that space in here. So I'm finally in a comfortable space with myself that I can just do what I need to do. And so let me show you some of the things that I'm doing more of though this year. We have made the garlic bigger than we did last year. When we did the garlic 2 falls ago, it was not enough to take care of us for the whole year. So that is more. We have zucchini and yellow squash going in this year. I really don't want them to be creamed this year. I did that last year, and it was an actual problem to have it so tight together. So I'm going to give it lots of room to be able to grow. I have an entire row of tomatoes, and I kind of have them planted in sets of 3. 1 set of 3, 2 set of 3, 3 set of 3, 4 set of 3, all the way up. And I think I might organize them by variety, doing it that way as well. We eat so many green beans, like so many green beans. And I freeze so many green beans as well. We ran out of green beans, I think, last month from the freezer. So it means we need more. So I have this entire row that is going to be green beans, which this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 1 about 40 feet of green beans. I have my jalapenos over here and my regular peppers over here. And I did that on purpose because sometimes, actually definitely a lot of times, if you put them right next to each other, they can end up intermixing a little bit. And then they either don't look the way they're supposed to, or they end up being a little bit hotter than you want them to be. And that doesn't just go for saving seeds, that goes during the season too. I have definitely bit into a bell pepper that it was hot for a bell pepper. Or I have definitely bitten into a bell pepper or picked off a bell pepper that it did not look like a bell pepper. So they do mix throughout the season as well. Now I have my little zinnias right, my row of zinnias right here, kind of right in the middle. I couldn't fit it up here. I did everything I could to try to fit it up here and I just couldn't get it. So they're just gonna sit right here and it's fine. It's going to be really pretty to look at from the road. And I should be able to get about 180 zinnia plants in this row. I put my zinnias pretty close together, anywhere between 4 to 6 inches apart. And I have, again, small rows, maybe 10 inches apart. And they loved it last year. And they actually, like, as they grew, they turned into like almost looking like a bush. It was really pretty. And you could still cut from it and everything, but it was gorgeous that way. So I'm gonna have that row of zinnias really filled up well with plants. So I have the regular bell peppers and my snack peppers going right here. Cabbage is going right here. I am not doing a lot of cabbage. This is the first year I've done cabbage, but I want to have a cabbage or two for like some corned beef and cabbage. And I also want to have some to make sauerkraut. So I figure I only need maybe like 4 things of cabbage, maybe 6. And so I'm going to kind of put those right in there. This is long squashes. So I've got spaghetti squashes and butternut squashes. I may end up moving some pumpkins over here as well. The pumpkins, I really want my pumpkin patch to do well this year. Last year, I thought I needed a ton of space to do these pumpkins, And when they all had grown out and vined out, I realized I could have put these a lot closer together. There's definitely more space available. So I am doing that. I am making the rows closer together. I think my spacing in the rows was pretty good, but I'm doing it closer together this year. And so I'm really hoping that it will take off. I really at some point would like to build something that they can grow up on. They would be a lot healthier and happier if I did it that way. But that's not something I'm going to get to this year, and that is okay. And so the pumpkins are going to just vine out and go everywhere, and it's going to be great. But I'm going to put more pumpkins in this year. So I have these raised beds over here, and I've done this specifically for some things like my perennials. I have rhubarb and strawberries. I did not want that out in the field because we till this every year, and so I don't want those in the way or even just to accidentally go over top of them. I also have potatoes here and onions here. Those are things that seem to have not done well out here in the field. And I don't know if it's my soil or I'm not really sure what it is, but they grew a lot better in here. I think part of it's my soil. I need to work on my soil and amend my soil and do a little bit better job at that portion. But I really enjoyed having them in the raised beds because they were also a lot easier to harvest as well, having them in the raised beds. Now, I have 4 of these trellises, arches, that some things are going to grow up on. I have sweet peas on both sides of this one. I have sugar peas and snow peas on this one. I have, let me see what that says. Oh, the little Jack pumpkins and then the baby Boo pumpkins on this one, so that it's the tiny little pumpkins. They're going to grow up this trellis, and that's going to be awesome. It's going to give them lots of space to make lots of pumpkins. And then on this one, I'm going to do cucumbers. I'm going to have the cucumbers grow all the way up on both sides of it. And that is using up my space wisely, so I don't have to use the field for that. And so that it doesn't take up a lot of room really anywhere else. It's just going up those trellises. So right here is my flower area. It's my cut flower area. This row right here, I have actually already created. It is outside. It has weed fabric down on it, and it has the beginnings of a low tunnel. My snapdragons, my bells, my Lisianthus are all going to go out there fairly soon. Hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll see if the temperature is going to turn or not. I'm also going to put ranunculus in there as well. I was going to put ranunculus over here, but I think I have enough space in here to do, now that I've gotten an idea of how many Lisianthus I'm going to have and how many bells I'm going to have. I have some room to put some ranunculus on the end, so I'm going to plan on doing that. Right here's all my dahlias. And then here is going to be a mix of all kinds of things. The things that I don't want as many of, I just want them as accents or fillers. So gomphrena, strawflower, cosmos, statice, basil. Those are all things that are going to go on there. I used to do things like that in rows. So I would have like a row of strawflower, a row of gomphrena, statice here, cosmos here. But I think I'm going to do it choppy kind of. So it's going to be like all of this is gomphrena, then all strawflower, then all cosmos, then all statice, then all basil. It's going to be easier to harvest, I think. But then on top of that, it's going to look a lot more pleasing to the eye as well. Back here, we're going to do some gladiolas. I have never done gladiolas. And I thought that maybe I wouldn't like gladiolas, but they're starting to grow on me a little bit. And I think they're pretty. And maybe I won't think they're pretty once I actually start growing them, but I think I'm gonna be a fan and I wanna give it a shot. So I've been watching several YouTube videos on how to effectively grow gladiolas, and they don't need a lot of space. I had there was one person I watched who she actually planted them 1 inch apart. I think that might be a little extreme, but I am going to put them pretty close together. So I don't need a lot of space for them. So they're going to be able to share a row with something else. I'm also going to succession plant the gladiolas as well. So I'm going to start 2 weeks before my last frost date. I'm going to grow, I think, probably 15 a week and go for maybe like 6 weeks. So 15 every week. I didn't do my math. I can do my math quick. Let's see, 90. I'm gonna get 90 bulbs divided by 6. 15, I was right on. 15 glads every week. I'm gonna succession plant it for 6 weeks. And so I think that will be good, and that should all fit in that space right there. I think it'll work pretty well. I'm gonna have marigolds right here. Marigolds are humongous, like they're huge. I'm doing the really large marigolds, and so they take up a lot of room. And so I'm gonna put those right there. And then I'm also gonna put all of my sunflowers back here. I am planting 300 seeds of sunflowers. I am going to succession plant my sunflowers as well this year. I learned my lesson last year about it. So I planted 150 seeds last year of sunflowers, and I was kind of relying on the different day to bloom, the different bloom times. So like 45 days to bloom, 60 days to bloom, 70 days to bloom, and kind of had in my mind, if I plant everything at one time, there's gonna be a nice succession. And in theory, it's good, and it did kind of work that way. But I had a really long window that I didn't have any. So our last frost date here can be as early as the middle of September. I can't really think of the last time that actually happened. And last year, 2024, we did not have a first frost until the middle of October. So my sunflowers started fading out in the beginning of September, middle of September. So from the middle of September all the way through until that first frost, I didn't have any sunflowers, and it was terrible. So succession planting in putting some sunflowers in like the middle of July, it's a little bit of a risk because you may not even get to use them, but it's a risk worth taking, because if I can get even all the way to October and not have a frost, then I can definitely get some sunflowers out of that crop and get some nice bouquets for fall with that. So the greenhouse is my newest space. My greenhouse is 6 feet by 16 feet long, and we are putting 2-foot beds on each side and on the back here. And so one side is going to be dedicated to trellised type, I don't want to say vegetables because I guess I don't know if a loofah is a vegetable. I guess it is vegetables. So I have cucumbers, loofah, and then fruits as well, watermelon and cantaloupe. I'm going to put some chicken wire on that side, on the inside, and have it grow up the walls. I'm going to start my tomatoes right here. The tomatoes are a big deal to me because they love greenhouses. And then from on, I'm going to have some flowers. I'm going to put some snapdragons in there and see how they do in the greenhouse. And then I'm going to put my celosia in here because celosia loves the heat. And so they're going to grow a lot better in here than they are out in my field when it's cold and wet outside. So that will be good. The only thing that I feel I'm really missing is that I'm not sure if I have enough room for my zinnias because 180 plants is a lot of plants. But some of those plants are going to be the big binary ones. And so I just want to make sure I have enough room for everything. So I may end up having to figure out something for that, even if it's just planting zinnias in another space on my property in order to cut from them. I am growing a few trays of zinnias for my perennial garden. Instead of filling a spot with perennials that I don't know what perennials I want there yet, I'm going to put some zinnias and make a bush hedge type situation. But I need somewhere that I can willingly cut them. And so I'll be working on that, and I'm sure I'll have it figured out before time comes eventually. So now I figured I would bring you along to do a little bit of fertilizing.